Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. You're watching Islamic Action TV with myself, Bilal Ali Hugh. This program is brought to you under the auspices of Gorilla Minded Productions. In the studio today, I got brother Muhammad Suleiman and Simon.
Assalamu alaikum.
Mr. Marcinet. Brothers, it's been a minute, but we got to get in it.
That's right.
Something is on the horizon. Something's just passed. You know, just last week, Britain voted, or should I say the United Kingdom voted, because there is a difference. But the United Kingdom voted to leave Europe as part of the EU, part of the European Union. I'm interested in finding out your reflections. I've got mine, which I'm hoping I can share later on, but I want to find out your perspective on this big event and the consequences or the fallout. So, I hand the mic over.
Yeah, it was a week ago. And the dust hasn't really settled on it yet, and people have said a lot of things. There's been a lot of anger. We've had the protests yesterday on the streets of London. Lots of people unhappy with the result. But the question is, how do you take a sober, long look at this and see, okay, what do we do next? What's the next steps? A lot of people have said, and I think it's reasonable, that Brexit may never actually happen, as people who voted against staying in the UK may want it to happen. And that's because there's so many legal consequences of so much you've got to untie.
Implications.
Freedom of trade, employment, law, health and safety, bilateral agreements, all these sorts of things, and relationship with Scotland, relationship with Northern Ireland, all these sorts of things have got to be locked up.
It's deep. So
people understand a bit angry that in times of austerity there's got to be a huge push to resources put to sort these things out. Untie this. So I can understand from that point of view that people are unhappy. So the actual trigger, the legal trigger, is a notification to the European Council. It's called Article 50.
Yeah, you heard a lot about that.
Then the process takes 2 years. So my guess is that the UK are going to delay as long as possible, bearing in mind, of course, that Scotland have threatened to pull out of the UK if it does go ahead and form their own relationship with the EU. So there's going to be this huge, long period of uncertainty, maybe many years of not knowing what's going to happen. When is it going to happen? What's it going to look like?
How will it pan out, man?
Yeah.
How will it pan out?
So you've got to ask yourself the question, okay, the aim of the referendum, which has backfired, was to sort of nullify Farage and get the UKIP argument off the headlines. But now the reverse has happened.
He's ascended the throne.
Farage, yeah.
So he's going to become a bigger figure. So every few months you're going to hear from him saying, "Oh, it's been 3 months since the referendum. What's happened? It's been 6 months since the referendum. What's happening?" So you're going to get this stoking of the,
Farage is for people in America or France.
Nigel Farage is a little. I won't call him an upstart, but I don't really know how to best.
He's a pain in the neck.
Because we're fasting, so we can't really say what we really want to call him. But
he formed this party called the UK Independence Party.
It was Goldsmith at first, wasn't it? It was Lord Goldsmith, and then he took over from Lord Goldsmith.
I don't know the history of the party.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's the most prominent figure in the.
He is the party.
Yes.
He ran the party name.
The party.
There's nobody else in the party.
No, nobody else speaks there.
He formed this, whose sole agenda and sole aim is to ensure that Britain leaves the European Union. So he's achieved that, or he's achieving that. So he's going to be
Is he?
Well, so he's going to be a political force for some time until we actually decide what the hell's going to happen with our relationship with the European Union.
Sorry, you finished?
Yeah, I mean, they're just legally speaking as well. I mean, even if we withdraw from the EU, there's people who say, well, we are going to still have freedom of movement, freedom of trade, so not a lot's going to change. So technically, you can either withdraw from the European Union, but still have some of the same sort of laws that we have at the moment, except we don't have to pay the contributions. Some of our obligations are going to be less. We're going to obviously see on the council and so on. But people coming in and out of Europe, we're going to have similar sorts of rights. How that's going to look, I don't know, but that's one possible solution to this. So.
What say you, Simon?
I've been listening to both sides of the argument, and there was all these Muslims, particularly with the Inshallah posters, which means stay in, and very clever play on words there. Maybe I might be seen as controversial in my particular stance on it, even between my distinguished brothers
Controversial.
Right.
Man, that sounds like you.
I know there's a lot of pull against people saying that they want to have a new referendum, but I personally feel that the referendum was the best thing for this country and for the United Kingdom. The reason why I say that, and I know it might fly in the face of a lot of people who think anyone who supported the Leave campaign is a fascist and a racist and is against immigration. No, I think that if you look at the recent polls that they've shown, and Channel 4 did a recent poll, and I think, I can't remember another government, it wasn't a government, it was a non-government poll that they did, that the majority of the people who voted Leave was for sovereignty. Immigration was way down the list, it wasn't even negligible. Now, the fact that we have had waves of attacks against Polish people, which are disgusting, against Muslims, which are disgusting, and against immigrants in general, irrespective of their race, colour, or creed, is disgusting and unjustifiable. I don't believe that people that this country pulling out of the EU has basically created that any more than Arnold Schwarzenegger. Someone can justify killing people using a movie. I think that it's already there, it's deep-seated, but it's an excuse for these people to come up with their filth and their xenophobia.
So you're saying, let me understand you correctly, so you're not saying it's a cause and effect type of dynamic, you're almost like, sounds like you're saying it was a trigger.
It's a trigger for
the gunpowder that was already there.
But if you think with 65 million people in England, and literally the incidents, I'll be honest, they're less than what? 2.2%, I mean how many tops? Has been in the 2 weeks less than 30 people tops, perhaps.
I read something in the Guardian this morning saying that the reports had gone from 62 a week to 313 a week. Now you can read that whatever way you want.
You can.
I mean, the media may choose not to publish the 62, the remaining 62 were published.
Correct.
So it's obviously whatever thing you put out, it's a media-driven thing. The media can control how few are reported. The media can control how many are reported.
Exactly. These things are all massaged by the media. The bottom line is the fat cats in Europe have been controlling this country and other countries. They want to create the super state that will ride roughshod over laws that are sovereign laws in this country. They're unelectable. It's not a democratic process. They create these huge butter mountains. They create the shape of a cucumber, the shape of a tomato. It's fascism. And who controls Europe? Germany, yes, and France, right? But Hitler didn't lose the war if you follow with the EU. Now, Farage is a nut to be using these anti-immigrant posters where he's got all these guys with their teeth just grinning and like, hey,
give me money.
Give me money.
It's something like this. It's
Marxist, yeah. This is Nazi propaganda. It's something Goebbels did when he compared Jews to rats, and he's completely out of the pale. But the reality is, the super bankers, the super rich, they are for the EU, they are for Europe. And
what I thought was significant was, we had this Standard & Poor's rating, don't we? We have the AAA.
Yeah, AAA.
Suddenly, a week later, we hadn't left the EU. Nothing had changed.
Exactly.
And the government policy hadn't seen. Then it changed to AA minus.
minus.
So how did that happen?
It's all fake. This is a good point. Osborne, said if we pull out within a week, there was doom and gloom. Our economy would collapse. There would be no money. The Bank of England. The person at the Bank of England, remember the Bank of England again is a personal bank, people. It's not a national bank. It's a private organisation, like the Federal Bank in America. They're privately owned corporate organisations. He came out saying doom and gloom. 50 of the most eminent economists of the highest, all they came out and said England would collapse within a week. This was a scaremongering tactics. However, now
that's what it sounds like.
It was scary, but hold on. All of a sudden now, Osborne's coming out saying no. What did he say? We can ride the storm. All the things that we predicted won't come true. We're able to support the sterling. The sterling dropped to its lowest rate in 50 years within a day. How did that happen? So what happened to all these speculators and all these people that's supposed to support and keep the money going, and all these people that own all these reserves? It just collapsed. Come off it. It's fake, man. It's a con. It's planned. God, it's planned. The point is, it's like we said with Rothschild. Rothschild would during the Battle of Waterloo, he supported Napoleon and Wellington. Because during World War II, you might not even know this, but Ford Motors built the Panzer tanks for Hitler.
Teach.
Ford Motors, George Bush, his father, I forgot his name.
Prescott.
Prescott. Yeah, he kept the Nazi regime alive for his bank. machine alive. Up until American boys fighting in the Pacific, they was fighting against tanks and airplanes that was being created by American companies, and oil being sold to them from Texaco to the Japanese pilots. It's a con. They sit back on both sides and make money. So if we was in, the bank could try and control it. If you have to try and control it.
Now I've got to say something about the banks, though, because this is where I come in. I don't want to be a leftist or a right winger or a left winger. I try to be, as Malcolm would say, a realist. I want to look at the real politic. And there's an article that came out in the... So the referendum was 2 Thursdays ago. The article in the Financial Times that came out on a Monday was leading or alluding to saying that, you know what, Britain, UK, should I say, isn't going to leave. They ain't going to leave. And that there's a whole host of legal measures that they're going to draw from. We know that, you talk about democracy, but let's be frank, democracy died some time ago.
It was not democracy, no.
You know what I mean?
No, it's not. It's copper.
It's like, remember the film Psycho when the woman's in a wheelchair sitting by the window, but she's dead, but it looks like it's alive. But it's just exactly. It's dead. So, because why? The corporations run things, and I think as long as the big boys who go into those rooms that we don't know, those smoke rooms where we don't know what is discussed, there's no printout, there's no public, those conversations are not published. But they contain elected officials on one side of the table, and the industrialists or the corporate, the leaders in the corporate on the other side. And those leaders have long meetings and decide in advance, years in advance. Exactly, but they don't come out and publish what was said, or even list of who attended those meetings and why they were there.
No minutes are kept.
Right? No minutes are kept. So, with that in mind, one would suggest that it's a scaremongering, it's a shake-up. But as you can see around us in London, for example, that there's a gentrification going on. That the people who in power economically are going to continue to make money. They're going to make money. They're not going to leave. But I think it's hypocritical, and we're going to touch on this in the next, hopefully in the next episode, that Muslims are crying wolf about how their attack them have risen, how Brexit is a bad thing for Muslims and all this stuff. Yeah, but the bottom line is if you're so-called Muslim and you're from, for example, in Pakistan or somewhere like this, the traditional
Muslims, you do have links to this country. Do you really think it's fair from somebody from some Romania, right? If you're born in this country, you're trying to get housing, and you're trying to get a job, that somebody from Romania who has no link, for example, in World War II, or fought for this country, or died for this country, not part of the Commonwealth, can just waltz over here, a roofer with no legs, can come to this country, right, and get a house and a flat over you. A legless roofer can get a house over you. This was part of Blair's madness, that he just brought people over and didn't even consider where he's going to put them. He put them in the most pressurized area where there's lack of schooling.
He knew they weren't going to be living near him.
It was a mad experiment. It was a mad experiment. It was twofold, because the white British population, their genealogy is dropping. So one of the things he was worried about is that all these bloody Muslims, all these darkies, are producing more kids, and the white Caucasian British bloodline might die out. So let's bring up all these Eastern Europeans, build it up a bit, but he didn't take into account the fact that British white people don't mind black people. They don't like Eastern European people, which was crazy, which is weird. They've got more thing against them. So ignorance is ignorance. We're not always excusing it. But Muslims sitting down, the point is, Muslims, if you've got a link to the Commonwealth, you'll have more of ability to come to this country and participate. I'm not saying other groups don't do that, but I think it's scaremongering among the Muslims as well to get caught up with all this Brexit thing.
Reactionary.
It's reactionary. It's totally reactionary. People vote whether you like it or not. It was a so-called democratic process, yeah? If you start undermining that, then why would we both have elections then? When Conservatives, let's just say we don't like that, let's march against it. You can't do that. The whole point about it is that you're supposed to have a bloodless society where you don't overthrow the people by bloodshed. You vote them out and they stay out of power. This way, at least we can control the politicians to some degree, rather than in Europe. The next thing in Eastern Europe, for example, was they want to lower the age of consent to 9, for example. They passed that already in parts of Europe. They could override our laws, and I say our, I mean their laws, but they could override the laws of this country and impose that you have sex with a 9-year-old child. Now, I know some of you Muslims would mind that, because that's a lot what you want to practice.
I would have been
but it would be like, yeah. But those of us, yeah, who have a stronger view of morality and know the Quran and Islam doesn't support that, right? We're not going to go for that. So there's certain things that there was imposing on this country undemocratically, and these butter mountains. Imagine there's people starving in the world, but yet you was having butter mountains, and because you want to keep the money, keep the wealth,
regulate the price.
People have huge vats of tons and tons of butter, tons and tons of tomatoes, vegetables, wheat, crops, and they just dash away. And there's people starving in the world because the EU set these stupid standards to keep the money inflated to a degree. And you can tell it's a joke because look, we didn't take the single currency. Why? Because it collapsed. And who built Germany? And what did Greece do? Greece sold the pantheon, the Acropolis. They sold it to Germany. They came in and picked the bones of Greece because Greece defaulted. So people were selling off their national monuments. And that's what happened to England. I know we've already sold London Bridge has already been sold, hasn't it? To Latin America.
It's an accident as well. I mean, look at the immigration thing and these great mantras about freedom of movement. Where are all the refugees going? They're going to Greece, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's crippled economy.
That makes no sense.
I was speaking, we were at a Ramadan dinner Iftar dinner the other day, and I was speaking to somebody who takes stuff over there. But he doesn't take what he does, he collects money and buys the clothes over there. So you've got this industry now of purchasing of huge sort of warehouses in Greece where clothes are bought for the Syrian immigrants in these huge concentration camps. So it's going to be like Bangladesh. You're going to have these huge warehouses full of unemployed Greek people churning out these
sweatshops,
unemployed Greek people who have been crippled by the downturn now, or the way the EU's treated them. And it's going to become a third-class country if it's not done.
He's already though. He's already, isn't it? Italy's like that.
So you get these great mantras about freedom of movement, but in terms of where immigrants go, or where immigrants from outside the EU go, they're third-class citizens. I
totally agree with you. I know we're running out of time now, but just touch on this point of immigration is very important point as well. If people voted for Brexit thinking that we can control our borders, that's never going to happen. That's the reality of it. Because Farage and what's his name again, Gove and Boris, they've all reneged on these claims because they know you can't control the borders. So let's be honest about that. So if you voted on that basis, you're an idiot. If you voted for sovereignty to try and get back sovereignty of your country, that's different. That's what Henry
the NHS thing.
Exactly, and then that was a lie about the NHS as well. 350 million for the NHS.
They confessed the next day.
I know, no, that's rats leaving a sinking ship. The only thing is, it's similar to what Henry VIII did. Is the King of England or is English sovereignty controlled by Rome, a foreign power, right? Or do people who live in the country themselves control themselves? That's basically what it is about. Do we let another foreign power control us, whether it's religious power or whether it's economic power? And it was about taking back control of our country, or their country, as they say. You know, I mean, my country. I'll just not debate for another day. But I think of the immigration, forget that. It's not going to change. It's not going to change that. The only thing is now, perhaps you'd be able to, maybe if you go back into Europe, they can renegotiate, because Europe has to have them back in on some level. They may not have the fullness of the fruit, but it might be better at least
some kind of affiliation.
There will be some, and I think you're right. They're going to tighten up in law and tighten up, and they're going to try to undermine the so-called vote. Because as you said, we want it to come up. Boris was shocked. Gove was shocked. Farage was shocked. Because Boris was shocked. He wasn't thinking we
won.
I know.
I told everybody it was lost.
No, he's gloating, didn't it? And then the guy said to him in the EU, saying about, I told you it was going to come up. Because he's like Hitler. Hitler was a one-party thing. The Treaty of Versailles, innit? Let's get rid of the Treaty of Versailles, isn't it? And he was shocked when they actually did it.
One issue manifesto.
One issue manifesto. So the guy, he said, what did Goebbels say? The Jews were laughing at us when we said we're going to get into power. And but you're not laughing anymore. And he said the same thing to the EU. You laughed at me when I said we're going to come out, but you're not laughing anymore. And the guy stood up and goes, because you're a Nazi, and why are you even here then? If you're so disgusted with it, why are you still getting paid, and why are you here?
But the point is,
eating from that
trough. Eating from the trough.
Eating from that trough. But you know what? We really got to tie it up. We really got to tie it up because of time. But we're going to come back, inshallah, if Allah wills. We're going to come back with a hot one. You can stay tuned about exit, Brexit, and the Muslim community.
And we're going to fix it.
But until next time, Assalamu alaikum.
Subscribe.
Wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
But please, subscribe, remember, down there. And we'll see you soon.